Hello, everyone. My name is John Tabernor. I am the community lead here at Relic Entertainment, and I am joined by the game director for the Dawn of War Definitive Edition, Philippe Boulle. How are you doing today, sir?
I am very good, John. Happy to be here.
So we are fast approaching the release of the Dawn of War Definitive Edition, and I know one of the things players have been clamoring for is some more gameplay footage. So I think that's what we're here to show them today. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. Yeah, let's get to it.
Okay, so let's just jump in. I know, Philip, you've pre-recorded some footage here for us, so
Yep.
we'll jump in and have you just talk us through what you're doing here in this mission.
All right. Yeah. So I recorded playing through the Spaceport mission in Dark Crusade. So for those who don't know, Dark Crusade is one of the expansions and has a campaign layer map where you're capturing territories. And one of the key territories is the spaceport that allows you to attack across the planet. And there's this fun little scavenger hunt mission to take the spaceport. And that's what I played through.
Okay, let's change over to that gameplay and let's check it out.
All right, here we go. So I'm playing as the orcs led by Gorguts. And the mission here is to find and recover these Space Marine servitors. So the little builder units for the Space Marines. The idea is they have a bunch of data that I'm trying to collect to take control of the space station. Unfortunately, the other player on the map, the Tau Empire, are trying to do the same thing. So I'm in a race to find and recover these servitors. So I'm starting off as the orcs here, and the first thing I'm doing is capturing some units, some points. You can see I have some units with these green rings around them. Those are my honor guard units that I earned from capturing other territories. Oh, here's the first servitor. This one's easy to find. It's right next to the base.
Yeah.
So that gives me a little start, but the Tau will be catching up pretty soon.
So,
Yeah.
Philip, before we get into the rest of this mission here, for longtime fans of the franchise, this is fairly noticeably different just right off the hop. If folks are watching this on YouTube, you were, playing this in 4K in widescreen. The UI definitely looks a little bit different. So maybe you could talk about some of the changes there.
Absolutely. So we have an option in the options menu to adjust the HUD width, so the width of the heads-up display. So I have it set so that it goes out to the edges of my screen, and we did that by splitting the mini map off on one side and the command card off on the other side. But you can bring them back together and get the classic experience, and it'll be centered, or you can choose, how far out you want to move them. The other thing people may notice is we've added the hotkeys displayed on the various icons, which, will make it a lot easier to learn the hotkeys. And we actually have 3 presets of different hotkeys. We have the classic hotkeys unchanged from the original version. We have grid keys, so most of the icons are on QWER and based on their position. And we have what I'm using, which we call the modern setup, which tries to standardize the hotkeys from faction to faction. So your builder is always on B. When you go to build, your barracks is always B. Your research building is always R, etc.
Okay, that's great. That's great to hear. Just some nice little quality of life changes
Absolutely.
to bring things forward 20 years.
Yes, exactly. So since I'm playing the orcs here, I'm trying to... Oh, I found another servitor. All right, I'm off to a good start. That's great. One of the big things with the orcs is you have to manage your population. So they have, orcs in Warhammer 40,000 are more dangerous the more of them there are, right? So they sort of become more cunning, more ruthless, more organized as you build this big wah, is what they call it. So we reflect that by much of your technology unlocks based on how many orcs you have in the world. And your maximum number of orcs to put in the world depends on building these things called Wa towers. So they're the equivalent of turrets for the other factions. But for the orcs, they're much more important because they're gating technology. So I'm balancing building those towers and then, bringing my orc population higher and higher by reinforcing squads and building more squads. So as it goes, I get larger and larger squads, more and more squads. One of the other improvements we've been able to make is improve the pathfinding of the game, especially when you have a whole bunch of squads. And that is, you feel that probably the most with the orcs, because the orcs, you have really big squads, you have a lot of them, and you're moving a whole bunch of units, and you're dependent on melee above all. So getting all your units to get around a building to destroy it is much easier than it was before, which is amazing. All right, I found another servitor. But you can see on the right, there's a counter of how many are at my base and how many are at enemy bases. And they're working ahead too, so we're actually tied here. So can't be too complacent.
So you're definitely in a bit of a race here.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's phenomenal to hear about the pathfinding improvements. That was one of the things very early on when we announced the definitive edition of the game. Players let us know very, very loudly and very early, hey, this is a sore spot for us. We would like this fixed. So I'm glad that we were able to implement some of those changes.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be totally honest. I was really nervous about it. And I didn't think we would be able to do very much because pathfinding is a big, complex system. And the thing I wanted to avoid above all was sort of making something that worked worse. So I really wanted to make sure we weren't accidentally making things less playable for players. Fortunately, some of our pathfinding wizards were able to join the team and dig in and bring on some of the improvements to pathfinding that sort of happened over the course of the last 20 years, right? The pathfinding in DAO was, step 1, and then Company of Heroes was step 2, and then Dawn of War 2 was step 3, and so there's been many steps, and we're able to bring in some of that. So in particular, units will move through each other much more easily to get where they need to go, which really helps in closing the gap with melee units. And far fewer, you're no longer having units just hanging out and not following orders because they don't think they have a place to go, which is what was happening in the original.
Yeah, so I saw you interacting with the pile o' guns earlier.
Yes.
So can you tell me about some of the research decisions that you're making here?
Yeah, absolutely. So now that I have enough population, I was able to build the pile of guns, which is the research building for the orcs, or the research pile. And the orcs have a lot of researches. Most of them are just make things orkier. So there's one for improved melee damage. So I went for that because I have a very melee focused army. There's one for better health and commander health, which I also took on. So I'm really, trying to just make my army better and better. One of the things I struggle with in here is stealth. So you can see these Tau units are shooting at me, and they are invisible to me. There I was able to use a stick bomb, a grenade, to kill them, even though I couldn't target them directly. But my only real... my reliable detection unit is the war boss himself, and he's super effective, but there's only one of them. So here he's nearby these stealth suits, and they are not going to last very long because they've been revealed, and they are Tau units, and so not very good against melee armies. So that's that's an advantage for me here.
Yeah.
But you can see, like here, I'm not able to actually target those guys directly.
Right. So you definitely have to be careful with or clever with where you're positioning your war boss. Right?
Exactly.
So, Philip, maybe we could talk a little bit more about some of the technical changes to the game as well, because we've done things like improvements to the camera or the fog in the levels as well, so we can actually see more of the game and actually appreciate the entirety of my base here.
Yes.
So maybe you can get into some of those changes in terms of like how the player is actually perceiving the game and interacting with the map.
Yeah, absolutely. So the original Dawn of War, the camera was quite close to the ground, which was really fun for showing the units, but often meant you had a really hard time having some map awareness. So we wanted to bring the camera out somewhat so you could see a bit more of the map. We also pushed back some of the atmospheric fog, so you could actually see further. Now, I should say you can, use your scroll wheel to zoom into the units at any time. You can shift the angles of your camera. There's a lot of different options there, and you can also set it so that your default camera is the classic view, but then you can pull out a bit more if you want. So there's a lot of options for the players. You can also see that, like, now we have, more modern shadows. The lighting has improved. The units have more, sort of reflective materials and so on. So the game's really looking great. I'm really proud of how it's looking.
Yeah, I think that was one of the first things that made me say, oh, wow, when we were working on this internally, was the legacy game had, I guess, what we would call cigarette burn shadows.
Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
And here you can actually see the shadows are, modeled after the unit and
Yeah.
actually reflective of what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Here you can see me using the wah ability on the war boss. So it's a buff for anyone around him. You can only use it every, minute or so, but it is very helpful in those fights. One of the things I'm worried about here is you can see I'm gathering these servitors. I'm doing pretty well, although we're still at 4-4. So in the fog of war, they're doing well as well. There is the possibility that they will send units in to grab my servitors. Mm-hmm. So I'm leaving some orcs back so that to help block that. That means some of my population is guarded there. But here we go. I'm pushing forward with my big mass. I have my storm boys over here. They're still getting harassed by some stealth units, so I'm sort of moving them around, taking advantage of their jump packs to get away from threats.
Yeah, they definitely provide you a lot of mobility.
Yes, absolutely. They are very fun units for that, and that is something that's a bit of a weakness. The orcs are not the fastest moving units, so they're not the slowest either. Like, you can get them across the map, but really quick movement is something the Storm Boys will do for me.
Yeah.
The Dark Crusade allows you to upgrade your commander, and one of the upgrades I took improves his movement speed with some war gear. I believe it actually paints his legs red, and red ones go faster, so he goes faster. But that, has been a bit of an advantage here. Unfortunately, one of my honor guard squads got overwhelmed by Kroot, who are the Tau's melee forces. They're sort of allied melee forces, and they are quite effective in melee. So.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I love about Dawn of War is just the very memorable voice lines and
absolutely
the story throughout the game and the campaigns, and the orcs have them in spades.
Yes.
And I'm glad that we were able to revisit these incredible factions and some of their memorable lines. So
Absolutely.
my question to you is, which is do you have like a list, like top three list of favorite voice lines from the game?
Oh yeah, I have a bunch that I love. My favorite orc one is probably one of the under fire lines where you probably heard it a few times in this match, where the orc boys just shout out, "Hey boss, we're getting shot up." Apologies for my terrible accent. And it just sort of goes to the fact that the orcs are both silly and terrifying at the same time, and that's really sort of the magic of the orcs. Is they're here you can see me stealing a servitor from their base, haha. The orcs are sort of humorous, looked at from the outside, but for anyone in this world, they're a terrifying group of monsters, and some of those voice lines really walk that balance. Probably my favorite line of all is a chaos line. It's the aspiring champion asking if you hear the voices too, which is just makes me smile every time I hear it. But there's lines for every faction that just that I just love.
Yeah. So as we watch you steal away some of these servitors, my other question for you is, if we know we have a lot of longtime fans that are really excited for the definitive edition, but if maybe I'm less familiar with Dawn of War or even the RTS genre, at large, where should I start with Dawn of War Definitive Edition? Like, how should I just jump right into the first campaign? Should I try out a skirmish by myself? There's so many factions and so many units to learn. What's the best point for a new player to sort of jump into this game?
Absolutely. So there's really two good places to start if you don't have a lot of experience with this type of game. One is we have a tutorial, and we actually have one for every faction in the game that walks you through basic commands, how their tech tree works, what you want to be doing. It's really sort of a step-by-step walkthrough, and I really recommend everyone do that. The other good starting place, which you can do in addition, is just the original Dawn of War campaign. So you have access to 4 different campaigns in the definitive edition, and the original Dawn of War Space Marine campaign just has a nice on-ramp in the first few missions, showing you mechanics, letting you play through things at your own pace. And then, once you've done a little bit of that, really all the options are open to you. Playing skirmish against easy AI, or even, playing with some friends against some AI opponents is a really nice way to explore the game. The easy AI is quite forgiving. It sort of paces itself to what you do, so you're not going to get stomped right out of the gate. Whereas the harder AIs are a lot more competitive, so you have some good fun. All right. I believe I just got my last servitor to this base.
That's great. Congratulations. I'm glad
Thank
you're able
you, thank you.
to accomplish that mission.
Gorguts' Wa continues unabated.
He'll be pleased. Phil, I think that the last thing that we didn't quite touch on that I wanted to get to is a lot of the improvements that we made to character models and terrain and just objects within the world. I know there was a ton of work there to sort of upres those and make sure that they looked great on modern consoles. So I'm wondering if you maybe touch on that a little bit before we wrap up.
Yeah, absolutely. So we upresed all the textures for all the models, and then certain models got a little extra geometry put into them. All the all the environment textures similarly were upresed, and then gone over by our veteran artists. Like the, the environment artist from the original Dawn of War is the environment artist on the definitive edition. One of the character artists from the original Dawn of War is the character artist on the definitive edition. So we were able to leverage expertise that goes back 20 years, which is really amazing, and just push those assets a little further. So they're still, I think they will look familiar to everyone who has played the game before. Like those proportions, the character designs are all still the same. But we're able to refine their presentation. And with the lighting and materials improvements in particular, they're a little more grounded in the world, which is really nice. Metals look like metals. The effects are a little punchier. So I think people will be really happy. I certainly am very happy with how the game is looking.
Yeah, and like I was saying earlier, it looks phenomenal on a 4K monitor.
Yeah,
I'm just playing it
absolutely.
here in the office, so
Absolutely.
I'm very eager for fans to get their hands on it.
Yeah.
So, Philip, I'll leave it there unless you have any sort of final thoughts that you want to give to fans before we wrap up for today.
I just want to say thank you to all the fans who've kept Dawn of War in their hearts all these years, and to all the people who may be coming to it for the first time. I hope you have a lot of fun. There's a whole lot of content there for you to dig into.
Okay. So thanks everyone for joining us today to get this quick sneak peek at the Dawn of War Definitive Edition, which is releasing on Steam and GOG on August 14th. So you can find it then. And of course, to stay up to date on everything else, be sure to follow us on your channel of choice at Dawn of War. So we'll leave it there. Thanks so much, Philip. And we'll
Thanks,
talk to
John.
everyone soon.
Bye all.